So thank you all again for coming. You look so good. You withstood all the rain, and you still look dry. We got soaked Friday night. We went walking at Brown County, and so I left my poncho, and I was trying to be a nice guy and going to get the car because it had just started to rain. Well, the problem is, as soon as I stepped off the porch and into the air, it became a monsoon. So I became soaked and cold the whole rest of the night, and I packed all my clothes, and unfortunately I left them laying on my bed. And so I had to buy a nice shirt, so I had to buy an extra shirt. So that was my excuse to buy the extra shirt. So my extra shirt actually got me into some conversations because it actually said U.S. Army on the front of it, U.S. Army veteran, and on the back it said these colors don't run. And so we spent about 5-10 minutes at Skyline last night talking to 3 guys about the same age, and we all had served. Some of them had served in Heidelberg and Okinawa, and another guy was a command sergeant major, and so we just started talking about serving and everything, and so I had to leave, and that poor guy's wife was still out there waiting for him. I don't know how long she had to wait, and I just thought, oh, I gotta go, man, I can't stay here. But one of the things we want to talk to you, we've been talking about, if you remember, the first sermon, first week was, how much do you trust God? Last week we talked about, can God trust you? And that's a deep question. So today we're going to start with the truth test. This is part 1. Because no matter who we are, every relationship that we are in is built upon trust. As a kid growing up, we have our parents. You see that old saying or old picture or something where the father's down here with his hands outstretched and the kid's up on the porch or somewhere, and the father's saying, jump. And the child's saying, but I don't know if you'll catch me. And you say, well, just trust me. And it takes a lot of trust built up for that child to make that first leap. And then you see some parents who are trying to teach kids you don't want to trust anybody. And so what do? The kid jumps and they move their hands. And thinking, oh, well, I just taught you a lesson. You don't trust anybody. And the problem is, you just taught them that they don't know how to have a relationship. And that's the basic element of everything. And so when we talk about trust and trusting God and God trusts us, there's some things that we need to understand. And last week we talked about the question, am I trustworthy? And trustworthy in God and how He expects me to be. Because every one of us, I don't care who you are, I don't care male or female, young or old, different ethnicity, different spiritual upbringing, every one of us, God has entrusted with things. As a matter of fact, even as a lost person, God entrusts you with things. And so the question arises is this: am I trustworthy with the things that God has given me? And there's so many things that He has. So we're going to share the first part this week and the second part next week, because this is going to take a while. But I came upon an article that I like to start off with, and it goes like this. At first, I saw God as my observer, my judge, keeping track of the things that I did wrong so as to know whether I merited heaven or hell when I die. He was out there sort of like a president. I recognized his picture when I saw it, but I really didn't know him. But later on, when I met Christ, it seemed as though life were rather like a bike ride, but it was a tandem bike. And Christ was in the back helping me pedal. I don't know just when it was that he suggested that we change places, but life has never been the same since. When I had control, I knew the way. It was rather boring, but it was predictable. It was the shortest distance between 2 points. But when he took the lead, he knew delightful long cuts, up mountains and through rocky places at breakneck speeds. It was all that I could do to hang on. And even though it looked like madness, he kept saying pedal. I worried, I was anxious, and I asked, "Where are you taking me?" He laughed and didn't answer. When I learned that I was going to have to trust him, it was then when I learned that I was going to have to trust him. I forgot my boring life and entered into every adventure. And when I'd say I'm scared, he leaned back and just touched my head. He took me to people with gifts that I needed, gifts of healing, acceptance, and joy. He gave me gifts to take on my journey, and off we went again. And he would say, "Give the gifts away. They're extra baggage, too much weight." So I did. To people we met, and I found that in giving, I received. The journey continued and our burden was light. I did not trust him at first to take control of my life. I thought he'd wreck it. But he knows bike secrets. He knows how to make those sharp corners, how to jump clear off of high rocks, and do things that I could have never done if I were in control. I'm learning to shut up and pedal in the strangest places. I'm beginning to enjoy the view and the cool breeze on my face with my delightful companion, Jesus Christ. And when I'm not sure I can do it anymore, he smiles and he says, "Just pedal. Just pedal." I think every one of us have come to this place where we ask this simple question: can I really, truly trust God? And can I trust him, not just trust him? Can I trust him with my future? Can I trust him with my life? Can I trust him with my family? What about my job? What about my health? What about my possessions? You see, the question is, every one of us come to this line that says, can I truly trust him? Or am I going to stand back on the other side of the line and say no? I want control. You see, trust is a line that we learn to grow spiritually and staying on the other side of that line and saying, yes, I'm going to continue to trust you. Or what I can say is this: I'm not so sure that I trust you anymore. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to back up and shrivel back to this other side of the line because I want to be in control. I want to do the things, my possessions, my job, my health, my everything, God. I don't want to give it to you. So, if you have your notes, there's 4 pages. If you don't have your notes, don't worry. I'll give them to you next week filled in. Okay? So you just hang with me and let's go for a ride. You ready to pedal? Let's go. So let's talk about trust this morning. T means take an inventory. Every one of us needs to be asking this question. The bottom line, do I trust God? The R means I need to recognize God as my source. We need to realize that when we take an inventory of our life, that everything that you have and I have is a gift from God. So many times we say, no, hold on a minute, that's mine. We become the 2-year-old again. God, you gave it to me, and I'm keeping it, and it's mine, and I'm not sharing it. The U means you need to understand God's principles. Until we understand the principles from God, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to hold back in our trust towards God. For instance, you came to church this morning. Maybe you got in the car. Did it start? Somebody's car here didn't start? Huh? For those of you that walked, did your foot move? That was a gift from God. That car, no matter whether it's paid for, held together, it's a gift from God. It can be gone at any point in time. And sometimes we don't realize that. We just think, hold on a minute, God, I took out the loan on the car, or I worked for everything, and I paid cash for that, God. That was my money. And he says, really? Who helped you get the job? Who helped you get up every morning to go to the job, or evening, or whenever? Who kept you safe when you were driving in that car and almost fell asleep? Who woke you up? Every one of those are gifts from him, but we take it for granted that it's just something that's going to happen all the time until it doesn't happen anymore. And then we realize, uh-oh, we got an issue here now. The S stands for surrender everything to God. When we understand the principles that God has for us, then and just then, it's an act of surrender. It's us moving out of the way. The last T is this: you need to test God's promises. We need to look at God's word. And it is not a sin to say to God, you told me that you were going to be with me. Instead of saying, where are you? He's telling you, I told you that I was going to be with you always, did I not? And he says, do you trust me? And when you say to God, where are you? You're saying to God, I don't trust you. Do you realize that? I have. Learned the lessons the hard way. Everything now I understand is a gift from God. If I get up in the morning breathing, it's a gift from God. If the Reds ever win another game, it's going to be a gift from God. We won't talk about the Bengals. If they win, it's a miracle. God does do miracles, doesn't he? In Psalms 139, 23 and 24, let me just read them to you. He says to God, God, look deep into my heart and find out everything that I'm thinking. Don't let me follow evil ways, but lead me in the way that time has proven me. So when you begin to look at what the psalmist is saying and taking an observation, you need to understand one, only God knows everything about us. My wife does not know everything about me. She doesn't. I don't know everything about her. And in May, we'll have been married 50 years. I know more about her today than I knew about her when we first met and when we got married. But ladies and gentlemen, every one of us have deep, dark secrets that we haven't shared with anybody. There are some things that you don't tell everybody. Number one, it's none of their business because it's between you and God. Unless you want to share it with them and maybe God sent them into your life to help you. But we need to understand something. The psalmist said this. He said, look deep into my heart and find out everything I'm thinking. There's a lot of times you're thinking about something and you don't say it. I can tell by the way you look when I preach. It's like, I don't understand a word you're saying. The deer in the headlights. Or when I tell a joke and everybody just sits there. And I'm thinking, really? Jesus told the same joke and you laughed. And everybody says, but you're not Jesus. And I said, yeah, I know, but it's just his joke. Maybe he told it a different way. I don't know. But listen, the psalmist said this. He says, listen, I don't even know what's down there. I don't even know what's down there. I don't even know what I'm thinking. That is a good line, husbands, when your wife is asking you, what are you thinking about? Saying, I have no clue, but God knows. And just leave it at that. Okay? And you'll be okay. But what the psalmist David, or the psalmist here, is asking God to do is help me take inventory. What's down here? What is it? There's things down here that I don't even know. It's like there are probably things that have happened to you in your childhood or your adulthood that you don't even remember anymore. And it's hidden. Maybe it was some kind of trauma that you want to stay hidden. But you tell God, God, take inventory. I'm trusting you with everything about me because I can't hide anything from you. Number two, only God can lead me correctly. He says, listen, don't let me follow evil ways, but lead me in the way that time has proven true. God's ways, ladies and gentlemen, are always the same. God is consistent. He doesn't change. May I also say something to you? Satan doesn't change. He doesn't need to. He uses the same mechanism all the time. A lot of times it's bread and jealousy. And he goes, use that because it works. But when you begin to look and see how God is moving in other people's lives in the Bible, understand that God is still moving in our life the same way, or could possibly be. He's not changing his ways because you don't like it. He understands where you're headed tomorrow if you live. So guess what? He's already preparing you for that trip. Or if you live another 10 or 15 years, God knows where you're going to be 10 or 15 years from now. And guess what? He's going to make sure that you've got everything ready and packed to make that trip. And that's where we understand that only God can lead me correctly. God has got the greatest GPS. And you want to know why? It never needs updated. He knows where the next path is going to be going. It isn't just going to show up. It's already there. He said, I know the plans that I have made for you. Even before you were in your mother's womb, I knew you and my plans for you. He knew you were going to be here today for some reason. So taking inventory and trusting God begins with me. Me. This whole issue of trust and everything, ladies and gentlemen, doesn't start with God. It starts with me. God's trusting you. Do you know that? The gifts that he's giving you, he's entrusting you with those things. So the trust isn't on the God part, the trust is on the me part. And so I'm the one that has to take a personal inventory and ask myself, how am I doing in this area of trust? What am I doing right now? So turn with me to Psalms chapter 3, if you would. And we want to start taking this inventory. Did I say Psalms? Yes. It's Proverbs. I'm sitting here. I know what the last one was talking about the psalmist. It's in Proverbs chapter 3. Look at what he says. In Proverbs chapter 3, verses 1 through 10. He says, my son, don't forget my teaching, but let your heart keep my commands. For they will bring you many days of full life and well-being. Never let loyalty and faithfulness leave you. Tie them around your neck. Write them on the tablet of your heart. Then you will find favor and high regard with God and people. Trust in the Lord. Trust in the Lord with all your what? With all your heart. And do not rely on what? Your own understanding. This is where we get in trouble. But he says, in all your ways know him, and he will make your path straight. Don't be wise in your own eyes. Fear the Lord and turn away from evil. Look, this will be healing for your body and strengthening for your bones. Honor the Lord with your possessions and with the first produce of your entire harvest. Then your barns will be completely filled, and your vats will overflow with new wine. When you begin to look In Proverbs chapter 3, verses 5 and 10, the writer understood that the trust in the Lord was having to be with all my heart. And don't rely on my understanding. And if I do that, then here's what God said that will happen. He will bless me so much that my barns will be filled and my vats will overflow with new wine. Or as the psalmist David wrote, my cup will overflow. My cup will not be able to contain what it is that God is dishing out. It will overflow with all of the new wine, as he begins to say. So when we begin to look at this, I got to take inventory. Do I trust God? And if the answer is yes, I truly trust God, then God will do his part. If he doesn't, he lied. And God can't do that. I'm not necessarily telling you it's going to work out the way you want it to work out. But I'm telling you it's going to work out the way he wanted it to work out. And if you trust that and let him get in front of the bike instead of you, you'll find out it is really a cool ride. Because guess what? The guy in the front has to keep watching out for what's in front of him. The guy on the back can look around and see all the scenery. And I don't know about you all, but when God takes you for a ride, there's a lot of watching to do. And amazement. I've never seen this place before. This is awesome. God, thank you for this trip today. If I hadn't taken that trip, I would have missed this. The other day, I just got up and I had to go to the gas station. 7 o'clock in the morning. And I go up there and I get my gas and I'm paying for my gas and everything. And there's a lady standing behind me. And I forgot what it was that I had on or anything, but I turn around and with the biggest smile, she says, "Hey, how are you doing this morning?" I said, I'm doing awesome. She says, isn't it such a blessed day? And I'm thinking, what have you had in your coffee? You know, you've had some energy drinks or something, you know. But then I realized, hold on a minute. No. It is cool. It is awesome. And the next thing you know, we're sitting in there talking, and the person that's in there, you know, the cashier that's inside, she joins in on the conversation too. We started having a great time. At 7 o'clock in the morning, when everybody else is trying to go, oh, yeah, really? I got to get up. The sun's up. But what if I pull down my shades? You know, if it's dark in the room, does that mean that the sun isn't shining? That's what we've got God convinced. Is God, if I don't see the sun, it's not there. So I can sleep longer. The sun doesn't come up until 2 o'clock in the afternoon. That is what I found out that some people believe. Okay? But in Deuteronomy chapter 8 and verse number 18, it says this: "You shall remember the Lord your God, for it is he who gives you power to get wealth, that he may confirm his covenant, which he swore to your father at this day." And we need to come to the place where we can recognize God as the source of our life. Jesus said, "Come unto me and I will give you life." Life more abundantly. He's the source of all of this, and we need to know this. So I was going through the scriptures this week. I found some scriptures, like Matthew chapter 5:36, tells us that we can't even change our hair, add hair to our head without God being the source. Matthew 6:27 tells us we cannot add a single moment to our life without God being the source. James chapter 4, verse 14 reminds us that we cannot even say with certainty what's going to happen tomorrow without God as the source. Acts 27, verse number 20 tells us we cannot save ourselves from disaster without God being the source. And when we begin to realize that God is the source of everything, then we begin to see the beauty of it. There was a naturalist by the name of William Beebe, who was a very close friend to Teddy Roosevelt. And he spent a lot of evenings with President Roosevelt. And after the meal, they would eat there in the White House. They would go outside and they would look into the stars in the heavens. And he would say, "That is a galaxy as large as the Milky Way. It consists of 1 billion suns. It is one of 100 billion galaxies." And then Teddy Roosevelt would turn back to him with a big old grin and he would say, "Now I think we're small enough. Let's go to bed. God's the source." And there are times we need to realize that everything out there, God's the source. He made it all. And we're just a small part of this. And so many times we're concerned about what's going to happen. And he says, "I got it. I created it. I made it. I know what's going to happen. Don't worry about it. Trust me. Trust me. I'm still in control." And we need to understand God's principles. There are three reasons that why Christians don't give more to God. Number one, they don't believe that they can give and still meet their needs. There's a lot of times that people will say, "I can't give and still meet my budget or meet my needs." And so it alarms them. Or they don't know how to give. Or number three, they don't even plan to give. You see, because they lack planning. They're always in emergency mode. Let me say something to you. Your dryer will break down. Your car will break down. Your clothes will wear out eventually, after about 30 years. But listen, there are things that we need to understand. And we have done this before. And maybe for some of you, you haven't ever done it, but you would like to. We actually have done a financial peace program of how to manage your money. And you think that all I'm talking about is money. It's more than just money. It's handling your resources that God has given you. For instance, our jobs don't last forever. Jim and I were talking this morning about the changes that are going on at AK and talking about how that they changed their retirement, which they had, all these guys had started coming in there and workers. And when I say guys, it's guys and gals, okay? I am not politically correct, okay? I'm old school and everybody to me is a guy, okay? Or a person or a folk or whatever, you know. I don't see a lot of things, which is cool because it keeps you out of trouble. But he was talking about, you know, people that had started 30 years ago and planning on retiring and they can't because how much that they we're planning on getting, they're not going to get. And so now you've got to change some things. Lifestyles change, you know? Lifestyle changes medically. There are some times that I'm finding out a long time ago, I can't do the same things that I used to do. It hurts. Not just when I'm doing it, days later, you know, and you're still wondering, why is it still hurting? You know, I didn't pull anything. No, I didn't. Because why? Because I don't have any muscles to pull. It's all turned into dead weight, you know, and it kind of stuck here. Okay, but the one thing we need to understand is this, the who's in charge principle. And remember, that's what we were talking about last week, and that's this, that God's the owner, I'm the manager. I'm not the owner of my life. God is. I manage it. It's where he says to take care of ourselves. And so many times we want to take care of ourselves physically. But the problem is he's also talking about spiritually. Because he's given us those things. In Psalms 24 it says, the earth and everything that is in it belongs to the Lord. The world and its people belong to him. So if we understand that God's the owner and I'm the manager, that's number one, who's in charge. The number two is the give and grow principle. If you practice stewardship, it produces growth. He says it is more blessed to give than to receive. And again, it's more than money. When you give a smile to someone, and their face just brightens up, how much did it cost you to smile? Not a penny. But you know what? It could have just paid $1 million to them. That one smile that didn't cost you anything, but it meant a whole lot to them. And that's what he begins to start talking about, the give and grow principle. I have found, honestly, my wife had to get on me, okay, because I'm finding myself slipping back into a place that I don't want to go to, and that is negativity. Okay? This COVID junk is just causing me to go bonkers. Okay? And so I got to get out of this funk of negativity. Because if I continue with negativity, guess what you guys are going to get? It's worse than COVID. Absolutely. That's why my wife would, she would ask me, why is it you never get upset about things? I can't control them. And upsetting just causes my heart and physical problems or mental problems. And I don't need any more mental problems. I've got enough. But understanding that the give and grow principle, if I can stay positive, it will change people's lives. It doesn't cost me anything because the negativity costs me a bunch. And so I'm working on it. You told me this Saturday. So I've only been doing 24 hours, so I'm trying my best. Okay? Now, Timothy Johnson wrote in a book called Stewardship, it says, some say dedicate the heart and the money will follow, but the Lord puts it the other way around. He says, where your treasure is, your heart will follow. So if your treasure is dedicated, your heart's going to be dedicated. And if it's not, it simply won't. Okay? So when you begin to look at things and understand all of these principles, you'll begin to understand that the number 3 is this. It's the do it now principle. Samuel Johnson, got another quote from him. The person who waits to do a great deal of good at once will never do anything. There's a poem. It says this: procrastination is my greatest sin. It brings me into sorrow. I'm going to stop doing it. Perhaps I'll start tomorrow. Can I ask you a question? How long will you wait to find out the spiritual gift that God has got for you? I could go on the way out and I could ask some of you, are you a Christian? Yeah. Well, what's your spiritual gift? What is that? I didn't know there was any such thing. Oh, yeah. They're listed in the Bible. You say, well, I just do this. Well, do you know why you just do this? Well, that's just the way I was raised up. No, I'm not talking about the way you're raised up. Not by your mom and dad. I'm talking about the way you're raised up by God. And the gifts that he's given you. And the thing of it is, if you don't recognize what the gift is that God has given you, a lot of times you will not recognize what it is that God is asking you to do with it. You can let it sit around all you want, and it won't do a thing. But when you realize the spiritual gift that God has given you and start using it, it will change your world. Or, can I say this? It will rock your boat. Because he's got these things. And this is what we need to understand with the do it now principle. It's because we have to deal with our present resources, not what I'm getting tomorrow or the next day or the next day. Because number one, I don't even know if I'm going to be here tomorrow. And neither do you. There's people that are going on vacations and they're dying. There were the people in their condos in Florida. They didn't get up go to bed that night thinking that the pool was going to cave in and the whole building was going to cave in and every one of them were going to die. They didn't think of that. They thought they were going to get up tomorrow and just continue life. It doesn't happen that way. We've got to learn. There are some Christians. I was watching, I could not sleep last night. I could not go to sleep. And so I was watching a channel, it's called Heroes and Icons. And they had this one from back in late 70s, I think it was about Vietnam. It's called Tour Duty. And these guys were going to take a hill. And they took the hill and they'd give it back up. They took the hill and gave it back up. Took the hill, kept giving it back up. And then they came and they were having a ceremony. And they were giving all of these people awards. You know, this guy got a Purple Heart for somebody who was up there and they were wounded and dying. And he carried him on his back. Carried his buddy on his back all the way back down the hill, and the guy, lived. Or this guy was doing this, or this guy was doing this, and this guy was getting a Purple Heart, and this guy was getting a Medal of Honor, and this guy was getting this, and this guy was getting this, and this guy was getting this. And I got to thinking, you know what? There are some Christians who think they deserve a Medal of Honor for showing up at church on Sunday. I should get the Purple Heart. You know how much it costed me to get up this morning, come to church? I had to give up 2 blessed hours of sleep to come listen to you. Oh, come listen to God. We need to understand, what are we going to do with our gifts? You see, because one of these days, and I've told you, and I've warned you, you're going to stand before God and give an account of what you did with what you got. You're not going to give an account on what you wish you had gotten. You're going to give an account on what you got. And so it behooves us to understand these things. Number 4, okay? Let me go back before I go to number 4. I got a story I got to tell you. There was a rich guy who was on this prosperity kick. And he went from town to town talking about how once he only had $20 in his pocket. And when the offering plate came by, he put all $20 in. Then he became a multimillionaire. And boy, everybody just ate up the story. He'd go everywhere. People would just clap, and he'd encourage him to do the same thing. He was in Toledo, and he shared his story, and everybody clapped. But one lady raised her hand. He looked at her, and he said, "Yes, ma'am, do you have a question?" She said, "Yes. Now, let me make sure I understand. You only had $20. You gave all $20 to God, and he made you rich and famous." Yeah, that's exactly the way it works. And now you're a multimillionaire. Yeah, that's exactly right. Well, just one question. Would you like to do it again? Only this time it's not $20. It's a multi-million dollars. Would you like to give the multi-million dollars back to God and see if he'll bless you? Because I don't know about you, I get tired of these prosperity preachers that tell people, you know, and they always got this, God will provide. Let me say this to you. God has already provided. He's already provided. And so don't listen to them. I've got to learn to manage what he has given me, not what I'm going to give him 20 expecting 200. And how am I going to manage the 200? I hear people all the time saying, boy, I just can't, if I was to win the lottery, here's what I'd do with it. And it is amazing, some of the first things that come out of their mouth. They're going to change their way of living. I'm going to give my family X amount of money. And you ask them, well, when's the last time you gave your family anything? Well, it was back in 1922. You're going to change? Oh, yeah, you're going to change all right, but it may not be changing the way that you want to. So we need to understand the debt principle, okay? The debt principle is this, ladies and gentlemen. The moment we're born, we're in debt. I hear people all the time saying, I'm going to get out of debt. No, we stay in debt. Why? Everything that God gives me, I'm indebted to him. I never get out of that, okay? So, when we begin to understand these things, Paul says this, in Romans chapter 1, verses 14 and 15, he says, I owe a great debt to you and everyone else. So may I also say this, you're not also indebted to God, you're indebted to everybody else. You are. If you are a child of God, you are indebted to God to tell others about Jesus. I owe a debt to Jesus I cannot pay. And so do you. I can't ever pay that. But you want to know what? When I get up to heaven, God's got my bill. And guess what? He's going to say, hey, you've checked out here, you can check in here, and you don't owe anything. It's already been paid. As a matter of fact, you think I treated you well down there? You ain't seen nothing yet. It would be better in the place that we were going to stay in Friday night. But our indebtedness is twofold. Number one, every one of us owe God something. He says, I'm indebted to God. And it's a process that we all need to understand. So my first thing that I need to understand is I am indebted to God. My second thing that I need to understand is I am indebted, and so are you, to previous generations. You see, John Maxwell is a Wesleyan. He's not just a leadership guy for business and everything else that follows him. He's also a pastor of a Wesleyan church, okay, and was. But here's what we need to understand, and that is this. He says, he was talking about the church where he was at. There was a pastor, his name was Pastor Butcher, okay? They had picked out a spot and built this church in 1954. By 1981, John Maxwell wrote, when I got this church, it was a great church. It was already running 100 or 1,000 people. He had built it and developed it, and he says, and I want to give him a sense of gratitude. He says, I'm telling you, when I arrived that day, I didn't make Skyline. He said the man had already sacrificed. All I did was just kind of stand on his shoulders and build off of it what he'd already begun. And when we finally relocate, he said, we still have to remember it's not Maxwell's, it's Butcher that started this thing. He's the one that sowed the seeds and developed it and paid the price. We must never forget those who have gone on before us, who have given us the blessings that we have today. There's an indebtedness. We need to understand there's a group of people that started this church in 1954 and somewhere else moved it to this location, and we owe a debt to them. Because if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't be here. If it wasn't for their sacrifices, we wouldn't be here. We're just carrying on. Hopefully, that if there is another generation, that this building will still be standing, and that generation could come in here and use it as their place of worship to go out into the mission field, and they don't have to look for someplace. Because we're indebted to them. And we need to understand that our children and our children's children, you as grandparents, your children are indebted to you. Because without you having them, they can't have children. Now, they may get mad at you sometimes and want to send their kids to your house for a couple weeks. Okay? But you got to understand, it is because of that. And they just bless your hearts, you know. And so, let me finish with this. And that is this. It's called the Fountain of Youth principle. The Fountain of Youth. Remember Ponce de Leon in your history books in Florida, where he was looking for the Fountain of Youth? I found it. It has always been there. It's still in existence today. You know how we live forever? It's through our giving. If all we ever do is suck people dry, we have nothing to give. But if we learn that everything that we've got belongs to God and we want to give it away, because that's what He's going to do. He's giving it all away. So He's teaching us a basic principle. Give it up. Give it all away. Enjoy. Enjoy how? Enjoying making people happy. What makes people happy? Knowing Jesus. Prayer. It may not heal everything, but it brings you comfort to knowing that he's still in control. He says laughter is good medicine for the soul. There are sometimes, even if you don't like the joke, laugh. Okay? It's good for you. It will make you forget something. Even if just for a moment, it makes you forget. So, you need to understand something, and that is this. Remember, there's the old saying that you can't take it with you? So, my question that I'm going to finish with today is this. Have you ever seen a hearse with a luggage rack? Huh? Okay, so here's what I'm saying to you. When you die, what are you going to do with everything you got? Huh? You're not taking it with you, right? So what are you going to do with it? You're going to give it away, right? You're going to give it away. Well, the problem is, why do you have to wait till you die to give it away? Yeah. If you don't have, honest, think about this. If you don't have a will and you've got more than one child, oh, my kids get along. Oh, yeah. They get along, get along, get along. No. So many times what we do is we hoard everything we've got, thinking that at the end of the day, I'm going to give it to my kids, and they're going to thank me so much for the hundreds of thousands of dollars or $100 or $500 that I've saved up at the end of my life to give to them. When maybe, just maybe, all that child wanted was that parent to sit down and talk to them for 5 minutes while we worked ourselves to death. Or maybe all they wanted was you to come in and tuck them in at night. Or to play ball with them. Or to take them fishing. Or take them on a bike ride. But no, we'll wait till we die. And the problem is, at that point in time, it's gone. This is why God says the principle is this. I control what I have right now. Do you trust me? Do you trust me? Give it all to me and let me handle it. May I say this to you? God is a better handler of everything I've got than I could ever be. I'll spend it on foolish things. And he'll say, no, you don't need this. There's a person over here that needs that. Give it to them. They need it.